Hello, welcome to Carfunkle. I'm a funky carbuncle, thus the name Carfunkle. Carbuncles are creatures from Chilean folklore. Check out my short about carbuncles after this video. I'm just letting you all know now, so you're not like, WTF, what does a furry have to do with mythology? I am a furry, but that's entirely unrelated. Just, a coincidence. I usually put some sort of gameplay in the background, but Kratos hasn't made his way into ancient Sumeria yet, so this is what you're getting instead. This is the first video I scripted for Carfunkle, and I couldn't think of a better place to start than the beginning, the origin. Or at least it would have been a great first video if I didn't get distracted with 10 other videos first. Anyway, every culture has its religion, story, mythology, and because of that, every culture has its own beliefs on its origins, but one thing is common across all of these is that they do have an origin story. The story of the creation of their people, their culture, their deities, their pantheons, and stories, and they're all heavily influenced by their lifestyles. Among the oldest of mythologies is the ancient Sumerian mythology. If birth is when life begins, then ancient Sumerian mythology is the birth of human story and civilization. These stories were written in cuneiform, the oldest known text that we have available, originating all the way back to the year 3500 BCE. That's over 5,000 years ago. It's kind of funny how short that sounds. Nowadays, 5,000 sounds like such a small number. Most of the YouTubers I watch could easily beat that by 100 times as much, but in terms of language and human life, cuneiform is just old enough that most of it can't be translated and is only recently starting to be re-understood. It's kind of exciting to think that within human lifetime you could have something so old that it hasn't even been fully translated. It's kind of exciting. But it's not like we don't understand it because it's barely used. Cuneiform was used all over the place over the course of 2,000 years, and it changed greatly. Kind of like how Old English is hardly recognizable to the mewing and mogging of today. We also have plenty of examples of this language with thousands of tablets available. We even have receipts from this guy called, I'm gonna mess this up, but I'm gonna have to brush up on my ancient Sumerian later. The guy was called Nasser and was a merchant who received frequent cuneiform complaints from customers who felt tricked by the poor quality of Nasser's bronze. It's not like this was done and written on paper or even texted. Cuneiform was entirely on stone clay tablets and had to have been chiseled into the stone to write these complaints. Imagine how angry you had to have been to write hate mail in cuneiform. There's also some sort of funny cosmic justice that the only reason we know Nasser exists is because of the bad reviews he received, and his bronze of so poor quality that it transcends time nearly 4,000 years later. That was more of a fun fact though. The real reason we're here is the story written on these tablets. As with most stories, we start at the beginning. Never mind, my notes say there's no beginning. The tablet that had the creation myth of the Sumerian people was made on a singular, fractured tablet in 1600 BC, and the beginning of the tablet is lost. There are some other creation myths from the same era, and they're a part of the Barton cylinder. Wildly enough, it's an actual literal cylinder, not just a funny name, which, yeah, you might think, duh, of course it has cylinder in the name, but really the idea of it being a cylinder is really novel. The need to make this story as much of a story as it was art was overwhelming enough that the maker had to make it a cylinder over the much easier to read and make flat surfaces of other tablets. It would have been so much easier to carve this into a flat sheet of stone, so I really respect the art of it. Anyway, the beginning of the story is lost due to time and damage, but it picks up with the gods Anu, Enlil, Enki, and Ninhursag, and how they created the Sumerians and the animals they needed, as well as the first cities of Eridu, Badtabira, Larak, Sipar, and Shuruppak. This was done by Enlil separating An, heaven, from Ki, earth, making it possible for humans to live there. An, later known as Anu, is known as the Sky Father and the king of the other gods. You've heard of Zeus and Odin, and Anu is similar in that sense. Despite Anu being the big cheese, there isn't much info on him other than being in charge. He doesn't have many myths. He was a god to kings, so maybe it only mattered to the kings who Anu was. Enlil is the god of wind, earth, and storms. Unlike Anu, he was pretty widely worshipped, and they were big fans. He was seen as so holy that even other gods struggled to look at him directly. I wonder if they had shades back then. Enlil also had a pretty big role in the creation myth, so we won't spend much time on him here. Enki is the god of water, knowledge, and a whole lot of stuff including magic and boning. Specifically, fertility and bro juice. I might get monetized in the future, so I'm kind of self-censoring early. Just know that he's the dude with the dad batter. The last mentioned god was Ninhursag. Don't get on me about my pronunciation. This language is so old that there's no one alive that really knows truly how this joke was pronounced, so just say it how you want. What are they going to do? Argue with you? They've been dead for thousands and thousands of years. But Ninhursag has the longest name and is the only chick in this starting pantheon, so she's pretty important. She's the goddess of fertility, because it takes two to tango, and the goddess of mountains and rulers. She is the mother goddess. Continuing with the story, Enlil is tired. Wicked tired. The stupid humans that Enlil made are making too much noise and Enlil can't sleep, and in a perfectly reasonable response, Enlil decides all humans should drown. Enki, our sea bro and the god of sea men, tells the king of Shurapak about what's about to go down and tells him to build a big boat. The instructions for the boat is part of the lost part, unfortunately, but you can see where there's a bit of an overlap with what will become the possible basis for the Bible story of Noah's Ark. I'm not saying Christians are biting their style, just that the best stories travel by mouth and change, and Christianity did a good job of writing many of these stories down with their own twists. It's not news that Christians adapted many pagan traditions into their religions, like many aspects of Christmas coming from pagan solstice traditions. After a short time skip due to the missing chunk of text, it tells us about the flood. A huge storm rages for 7 days and nights. Kinda sounds like how the Christian God created Earth in 7 days. There's actually a lot of Sumerian myth that made it into the Bible, so I'll stop drawing parallels because otherwise it's going to be forever. But a lot of Genesis is coming from Sumerian mythology. The storm rages for a week straight, then Utu, the sun, shows up, and the king of Shurapak opens his window and sacrifices 1 ox and 1 sheep. Thanks to more Broken Tablet, we're missing some more story. This is why archiving is important, kids. The foundation of human storytelling was on this tube, and now a lot of it is lost. Thanks to more Broken Tablet, the flood is over, and Ziusudra, the king of Shurapak, presents himself to Anu and Enlil, Sky Daddy and Wind Daddy. And in return for Ziusudra preserving the animals and the seed of mankind, is given eternal life. The creation part of this was a bit of a footnote, huh? God showed up, bibbidi bobbidi boo, humans are here too, then oops, time to drown them. This is where the story ends on the Barton cylinder, but thanks to the epic of Ziusudra, we get some additional lore. After the flood, Ziusudra's boat floated down the Euphrates River into the Persian Gulf. This distinction matters because according to the original myth, his boat ended up on a mountain. Why is this an important distinction? I don't know, but boat hunters might care if they wish to find out where Ziusudra originated. After the flood, Ziusudra is the only human left, so wherever his boat ended up was where the first civilization of man started, according to Sumerian mythology. Well, the second first civilization, because the first was drowned. And that's kind of the end of our story here. We can continue into the following stories, like how the dualities were created: man, woman, life, death, sickness, and health, by Enki, god of nut butter, or the alternate creation myth where Enki and Ninmah compete to create humans. But there's a lot of history, and we have a lot of time, and that's when I'll see you next time.